Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. It's fragrance buying guide time. This time, Mancera. But a little different than usual because typically I would do a fragrance buying guide for a line of fragrances. So Azzaro Wanted, Aqua de Joe, something like that. But this time, it's just Mancera. And I probably don't have to tell you this, but Mancera's got a lot of fragrances. A whole lot. So we're gonna be breaking this up into parts, and this is part one. I'm gonna be going over with you guys 10 different fragrances from Mancera, giving you a rundown on the fragrances, some of the notes of each scent, kind of how they smell, performance, price, the whole deal. And then as time goes, I'll do another part and another part until I feel like I've covered enough of the fragrances from Mancera. So yes, Mancera, here we go. I'll have them all linked in the description, the ones that I talk about here today. So feel free to check them out down there. And if you shop for some of them Mancera fragrances, here are some codes that you can use. FragFlex, the code is GS25. That's buy one, get one 25% off, and it scales. So if you bought 5, you would actually get 2 at 25% off. But if you bought 6, you would get 3 at 25% off, you see? BOGO. And then of course, Twisted Lily carries Mancera, so there's the code for that website. Max Aroma also carries Mancera, so the code for that website also. All right, let's get started. Like I said, 10 different Mancera fragrances in part one. Here we go. We're gonna kick things off with this one, Hindu Kush. Now, your typical Mancera pricing at retail is going to be between $105 and $180. So $105 for a 60 ml size bottle, $180 for a 120 ml size bottle, which honestly, even at full retail, Mancera is pretty affordable as far as niche fragrances go, because 120 mils, 4 ounces for 180 bucks, that's pretty cheap when you compare it to what most other niche brands are charging. And then of course, Mancera fragrances are really well known for having big performance, so it lasts longer because you don't have to spray as much of it to get a really long lasting, powerful scent. But I do want to say that the absolute best bang for your buck when it comes to Mancera is discounters. Now, yes, you can pick these up from Twisted Lily, and you can use my code, for example, for 10% off, so it's gonna be a little bit under retail, but that is still nowhere near as cheap as you're gonna find these at discounters. So I'm gonna give you the discounter price of each one of these fragrances also as we go through them. And when I say discounters, I'm talking Fragrance Buy, Fragrance Net, Joma Shop, FragFlex, all that stuff. And you can cross shop these. Sometimes you'll find it, you know, a couple bucks less at one than the other, but the price I give you is kind of an average, what you can expect to pay. Hindu Kush at discounters is gonna run you about $72. That's for the 4 ounce bottle, 120 ml size. And the price that I give you for each one of these fragrances is for a 120 ml. Usually the 60 ml, the 2 ounce size, those aren't as easy to find at discounters. So keep that in mind. You may be able to locate a 60 ml for a little bit less, but again, typically your best bang for your buck is gonna be the full size. So this one, which you could maybe tell by the name Hindu Kush, is most well known for having a cannabis note. Yeah, that's probably the thing about this fragrance that pulls most people in, gets them interested, is that note of cannabis. But of course, that's not the only note in here. You also have incense, you have spices, you have amber, you've got vanilla. And truly to me, this isn't a cannabis scent, not in the way that a lot of people might hope for or expect. So a lot of people, they think that when you spray this one on, you're gonna get hit with a big weed note, right? But you really don't. It is a little green, but it's more like sweet green and a little bit herbal as well. You've got woodiness in here that comes out as the fragrance dries down, but it never really smells like cannabis. It's got a really pleasant, warm spiciness to it, kind of a faint smokiness, a little touch of earthiness from patchouli as it dries down, and then again, that sweetness that I talked about earlier, that lasts for a long time, and that sweetness can come across a little bit synthetic in here. This one gets hated on, actually. It's kind of divisive. Now, it doesn't get hated on by everybody, of course. It's got a lot of people that love it, but I do wonder sometimes if the reason this catches some of that flack is because people go into it expecting one thing and then get another. So if you're looking for a sweet, spicy green fragrance, again, a good amount of sweetness, with kind of an herbaceousness around the edges and a little touch of smoke, this could work really well for you. If you're looking for something that's gonna be a photorealistic cannabis scent, that's not this. It does have really good performance. It can pull positive attention as well. And for the price point, I think it's a really good bang for your buck. It's one that I like it a good amount, but I'm not in love with it. Still, I think it's solid and a really unique scent among all of Mancera's offerings. After that, let's talk about what is most likely the most popular fragrance from Mancera, Cedrat Boise. Now, there's an intense version of this that I'll talk about in a future buying guide, probably just do it in part 2. But for now, we're going to talk the OG. Now, interestingly enough, like I said, this is pretty much the most popular one, but it's also one of the cheapest. Yeah, you would think because everybody buys this and it sells so well and everybody knows about it, that it'd be maybe a little bit pricier. But no, this one you can find for about 65 bucks. And sometimes you can find it for even less because Mancera is one of those brands that even though it's pretty affordable, you'll still see it go on sale at Joma Shop, for example, where they mark it down even more. But on an average day-to-day basis, you can still find this under 70 bucks. And when you really think about it, that is insane, especially when you think about the price of everything here. Mancera fragrances at discounters, a lot of the time, are cheaper than designer scents. So if you're somebody looking to just get into niche fragrances, Mancera is usually one of the best places to start because it is, again, really cheap and the performance is huge and most of these are easily worn also. So it's a great jumping off point. All right, back to Cedrat Boise. This one has a really fruity opening, just a huge blast. So you get a bunch of lemon in there, you get black currant, so it's this kind of mix of like fresh, sweet, and tart at the same time. It's also really bright in the opening. Like you spray this on, it just immediately grabs your attention. As it dries down, the sweetness from the fruits becomes a little bit candied at times, and then as it dries down further, you get some leather that comes out, gives the fragrance a little bit of a smokiness. Then you have woods also mixing with that leather and residual fruits from the opening. Really, the fruity aspect of this fragrance lasts quite a long time. It's been compared to Creed Aventus. It doesn't really smell like Aventus. Like if you spray these on side by side, Aventus and Cedrat Boise are quite different. But you could say that this is like in the same family, as Aventus, and it has the same kind of versatility as Aventus. You can pretty much wear this year round, daytime or nighttime, massive compliment puller, huge performance. So this one, Cedrat Boise, I love. I think for the price point, it is a steal. This has always done really well as far as pulling positive attention for me. I think it's just one of the absolute easiest and best ways to get into niche fragrances. Now let's go with something that is not as well known. It is So Blue, and this one is actually pricier than the last two, even though it is lesser known than the last two. This one from discounter is gonna be about 78 bucks. So I mean, it's not massively more expensive, like $6 more than that, 13 more than that, but still a little bit pricier. And this one could catch some people off guard because you see the name, So Blue, and you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, okay, So Blue, like blue fragrances, right? Oceanic fragrances, aquatic fragrances. Maybe it's gonna be that type of scent, but it's really not. When you spray this one on, it's actually decently feminine leaning because it has a lot of florals going on there off the top. Now, it's not just that, but it does have, like I said, a feminine lean when you first spray this on. So a lot of guys, they may smell So Blue and just immediately go, no, I can't wear that. It's for my girlfriend, for my wife, whatever. But if you let that dry down, it actually moves from being more of a feminine leaning fragrance to being completely unisex. And it smells a lot better to me as it dries down, just as far as like what I would want to wear. You get aquatic vibes that come out, so you do pick up that aspect of a blue fragrance as it dries. You get some nice kind of sweet citrus that pops out, a little bit of musk as well. The florals tone down a little bit, and like I said, becomes way more wearable for a guy. It's actually really pleasant, especially the dry down. Again, it smells really, really good. Great for spring and summer, a nice daytime fragrance, good performance once again as well. It's just for a lot of guys, I would say, they have to be confident wearing a floral type fragrance when you first spray that one on. As it dries down, you don't really have to worry about it at all. And for the ladies out there, this could be a great kind of change of pace because it gives you a more feminine opening. Then as it dries down, becomes more unisex, but still has this really appealing kind of clean sweetness. And sweetness is gonna be something we talk about a lot when it comes to Mancera fragrances because a bunch of their scents are quite sweet. So this is one that's worth knowing. It's not ever going to approach like Cedrat Boise as far as just overall popularity or anything goes like that. But it's a really nice one that kind of sits under the radar. All right, now a newer one from Mancera, and this one's more expensive. This one at discounters is about $90. That's assuming that you can find it in stock because it sells out pretty often where it's a newer release. And it is this one, Tonka Cola. And yes, I bought a 60 ml of this one at retail. And it was because, again, you couldn't really find it, and I'm not gonna use the whole thing, so I was like, well, even though it's a better bang for your buck to get the larger size, in this circumstance, I'm gonna get the smaller one. And this is one that I really love. Like, this is my style here. And the name tells you what you're in for, Tonka Cola. You also have cherry in there. You have cinnamon, like a nice warm, sweet cinnamon. So off the top, you get this effervescent kind of sparkly cola mixed with cherry and that bit of cinnamon. Again, super appealing. It's got an effervescence to it, which is going to kind of make you think of a Coca-Cola, you know, that kind of, you know, carbonated beverage kind of vibe going on. And that has really good intensity off the top. Those three notes come together really well. It's very clearly defined. And you even have a little bit of lemon as well. So it gives a little more interesting balance there off the top. While yes, I key in more on the cherry, the cinnamon, the Coca-Cola, that lemon provides a nice little bite. And then into the dry down, that Tonka, the cola, it stays there. You get vanilla, you get some resins that come out also. So it ends up being just a really warm, cozy fragrance that's inviting and a little bit alluring also. So for me personally, I love this one. Fall and winter time smells awesome, but you do have to like sparkly, sweet scents. If you don't, probably not gonna like this one. But for me, this is awesome. Let's go with another blue bottle up next, Aqua Wood. And this one is gonna run you about $73. Again, sweet opening. So this one has pear, as ginger, as citrus off the top. So you're gonna get that kind of zingy brightness from the ginger. The pear gives you a slightly different take on a fruity opening, but then you have that more familiar citrus that kind of works in underneath the pear. And it actually has a bit of a creaminess to it, like a creamy sweetness underneath everything that you pick up off the top. And some people are going to probably liken that to like a suntan lotion kind of feel when you first smell this, which again, could put you in that frame of mind of like a beach vacation, which maybe makes the fragrance's name, Aqua Wood, make more sense. Although there's not actually a big hit of woodiness here, so there's that. This one also has a floral edge to the fragrance, never overtakes anything. You know, it's not the star of the show, but it gives it a nice little edge. And this one I actually think is another one that's under the radar a bit, but is very well done. So you've got great versatility here. Really nice for spring, summer, daytime use. People love it. You know, it's that kind of scent that kind of walks the line of giving you a designer type fragrance, but then at the same time, it's unique enough that you would go, oh yeah, it is niche though, because even though this has that same kind of approachability as an easygoing designer fragrance, it doesn't smell like any of them, or not exactly. Another really nice compliment puller, unisex, leaning masculine this time. So between these two, So Blue and Aqua Wood, I personally gravitate more toward Aqua Wood. But both of these, So Blue and Aqua Wood, give you an interesting, but still easy wearing fragrance for summer, like I said a couple times. So this one, really, really good. Like this a lot. And I guess when we get to the end of this part one, I'll let you know which ones are my absolute favorites from this whole lineup. But now up next is Red Tobacco, another big boy. I think for me personally, when you say Mancera and you say, okay, what are the biggest fragrances from the house, the top three, I would say Cedrat Boise, Red Tobacco, and then another one which has not been talked about just yet, which I'm actually not covering in part one of the guide. I'll cover it in part two, but you probably know what it is. So Red Tobacco, like I said, one of the most popular from the house, and actually one of the more expensive ones. This one gonna be about $90 at discounters, which still is pretty cheap when you think about it, because Designer fragrances nowadays, if we're talking retail price, they're all more expensive than 90 bucks. So if you go to Macy's and you pick up like a new Gucci or a new Dior, a new Armani, whatever, it's gonna cost more than this, at least at discounted prices. And even at discounted prices for most newer designer releases, probably gonna be more than this also. So yes, expensive in relation to what most of these go for at discounters, but overall not really that expensive. Now, red tobacco is a scent that when it first came out, I was not a huge fan, and it's mainly because of the opening. The opening here is a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's strong, it's unforgiving, there's a bunch going on. You've got a lot of spices, you have sweetness in there, you've got like an earthiness from patchouli that comes through, you've got tobacco leaf, you've got oud, you got a lot going on, okay? The opening, if you're unprepared for it, can be something where you smell it, you kind of feel overwhelmed and you're just like, oh God, man, this is not even wearable. Now, of course, it's not gonna be that way for everybody. Some people are gonna smell that opening for the first time and just be like, wow, what is that? Yes. But just as many people are gonna be like, Now, I will say, and I say this from experience, the more you smell red tobacco and you get used to that opening and you know it's coming, you can actually appreciate it a lot more. And it's kind of one of those things like an acquired taste or, just an acquired taste. You know, it can happen with movies, with music, with food, with drinks, whatever. There are a lot of things in this life that the first time you experience it, you just go, oh, no, that's not for me. And then on repeated viewings or listenings or tastings or whatever, you start to pick up things that you didn't notice before, and things that you used to think were too much, too overwhelming become pleasant. And that's what happens with this. The opening actually starts to become addictive somehow. Regardless of what you think of the opening, the dry down is great. It's warm, spicy, sweet, without being overwhelming, really sexy, huge compliment puller. Performance is massive with this. Lasts forever, projects like a beast, so a little bit goes a long way, and it's perfect in fall and winter time. This stuff is fantastic. The only potential drawback is that opening. So for some people, that is a deal breaker. But if you get over the opening, or if you like the opening, the dry down is so good when you get to it. So if you wanted to play it safe, if you were like gonna go on a date or something with this, spray it on a good amount of time before you go out, and don't go too crazy heavy, and then it's just gonna smell amazing in the air. Let's go with an underrated one up next, Sand Oud. Now, Mancera and also their sister company, Montal, have a bunch of oud fragrances, or oud fragrances. And it can all run together. It really can. They just have so many different fragrances with oud or oud in the name that it becomes one of those deals where if you're looking through like listings on a website or something, trying to think of something to buy, you'll be like, oud this, oud that, oud this, oud that, oud this, oud that, oud this, oud that, and you just go, none of this stands out. You know what I mean? It's just all, who cares? But Sand Oud is something that's worth knowing about. Even though, again, this is kind of an under the radar thing, and it's not going to be as much of a compliment puller as like Cedrat Boise or red tobacco in the dry down. But it's still good. This one's about 78 bucks from discounters. And I will tell you the oud that's in here is not something to be afraid of. Oud can sometimes be barnyardy, fecal, animalic, whatever. This is a nice, soft oud. The opening here is a dry spiciness, and then an interesting fruity opening because it's really just currant that takes the starring role here, black currant. So it's like this slight pop of maybe almost pepper that comes out of this spicy mix, but again, a really nice dry spiciness. It's very rich, well balanced. That tart currant as well. And you have this mix of like incense, patchouli, and that soft oud kind of coming through as this one dries down. And to me, it just smells so appealing. And the name actually makes sense, Sand Oud, when you smell it, because it has this, again, this dryness to it. It kind of conveys that feeling of the desert. And if you look at the note breakdown for this one, you may think, oh, we're running into generic territory because it's got rose, it has oud, and it has saffron. And those three notes, they get used together all the time. and it can be just super boring, frankly, to get another rose oud saffron. Like, who cares? I've smelled that 50,000 times. But this doesn't fall into that trope whatsoever. And I think it's really, really, really well done. It is going to be probably more appealing to guys middle-aged and older, people looking for something a little bit different, but still, as I've said a few times with all these fragrances, wearable. And I think even at that $78 price point, that is a steal. Really good stuff. After that one, let's talk about lemon line. Yes, lemon line, not lime. I know some people would almost think like, is that a typo? I guess it should be lemon lime, like Sprite, you know, like soda. But no, lemon line, as in there are black lines on the bottle, I guess. So with this one, you're looking at about 78 bucks again from discounters. And this is really about the lemon. I mean, surprise, it's called lemon line, but it really truly is about the lemon. Do you like lemon forward fragrances? If you answered yes, you'll most likely really like this. If you answer no, you'll most likely not like this at all. The lemon is front and center pretty much right off the rip, stays that way the whole way. So opening, mid, dry down, that lemon is gonna be there. Now, it changes a little bit how it comes across. Initially, it's more like a fresh, bright lemon. As it dries down, it takes on more of a candied aspect to it. So kind of like lemon heads candies, like the little hard, well, they're not super hard, but like little lemon candies. I mean, whatever lemon candy you're familiar with, it's probably kind of like that. There are other notes, of course, like you get a little sweet lavender in there, touch of orange, kind of a musky dry down, but that lemon is always, it's always there. You know, it's lurking over everything. It's kind of creeping. It's just like, you see it, you know, right there, like this.
It's me lemon.
I personally like it a lot. I think it smells great. My wife loves it. But again, if you don't like lemons, you're not going to enjoy this one. But I think it's another cool one in the lineup. You know, it's its own thing. And this one during spring, summer, nice little change of pace. It is strong though, pretty strong. So don't go crazy, crazy heavy with that because, or at least if it's going to be really hot and you're going to be around a lot of people, because that lemon could be a little overwhelming for some people. Then we got Sicily, about 77 bucks. From discounters. This one is unisex, leaning feminine. The opening here is really, really sweet and fruity, kind of like a fruit salad, just a mix of a bunch of different fruits, and then like a very sparkling, vivacious, floral kind of mixture with that fruit salad. Really, really bright off the top. It's just like lively, attention grabbing, a little bit airy, but still has a good push to it. As it dries down, it gets more like woody musky, and then you have a residual fruity sweetness from the opening carries over, and a little bit of like a floral powdery touch as well once you get that dry down. This smells great in spring and summer, but again, you have to really like sweet fruit forward fragrances. But this is more one that my wife wears. Like, she smells awesome with this or fragrances like this, but not one that I reach for myself. Now, I'm not telling you that this is like the most feminine fragrance I've ever smelled or anything like that. It's not. It's just one that I think of more as like the wife's fragrance, if that makes sense. All right, last one for this part is Oud Lemon Mint. And this is a personal favorite of mine. I like that stuff a lot. This one is about 74 bucks from discounters. So that's really about the average price, it seems, for Mancera fragrances, somewhere in that like mid 70s range. And this one is right in there. It has some of the notes right in the name of the fragrance for you there. Oud Lemon Mint. Again, you've got a sweet lemon. Mancera has a number of fragrances with that. We just talked about one of them, but it's got a nice sweet lemon off the top. Again, a little bit candied. You don't actually get a huge push of mint. You do get a nice little green freshness, brightness from that, and sweetness as well, but not a massive blast of mint. This is more that smooth, again, almost candied kind of sweetness off the top. A little creaminess as well, coming from almond that you have in here. The oud is, once again, more subtle, a little bit softer. So it gives this citrus opening, that kind of creamy citrus, bright, sweet opening. A little bit of a twang, you know, a little interesting twang without going full on funky. This one is really addictive for me. Like, this is the type of scent that I just keep, I can't stop. I love the way it smells. You're gonna love the way you smell, I guarantee it. Really strong also. It's the type of fragrance that I think you can wear year round, but during summer, you wanna be careful with sprays. kind of like with lemon lime here that I talked about, because that sweetness is almost syrupy. Like, yeah, it's fresh, it's bright, but then it's also heavy. And so if you go really heavy with it in summer with sprays, then it could be headache inducing. So keep that in mind. And also in the dry down, you know, it's got that like leather, oud, vanilla kind of combo going on. And that can also be just a little bit too much when it's hot out. Oud Lemon Mint for me has always been a bit of an amazing compliment puller. So it's just like, it does everything I want it to do. It's unique, but then it's still wearable enough that you don't really have to think too much when you spray it on. Great performance, big compliment puller, and doesn't cost that much. So awesome release. So there we go. Oud Lemon Mint, gonna wrap up part 1 of the Mancera buying guide. Like I said, there's just so many of them. If I tried to put them all into one video, it would be just, it'd be a long video. So if I were to pick out my 5 favorites from these 10, it'd probably be Cedrat Boise, Tonka Cola, Red Tobacco, Sand Oud, and Oud Lemon Mint. With a shout out to Aqua Wood and Lemon Lime. That's what I'm gonna go with. So there we go. Part 1, thank you guys for hanging with me. There are many more Mancera fragrances to talk about. And then who knows which niche brand we tackle after that. Let me know in the comments if you got one in particular you want me to tackle next. Thank you guys, stay safe out there. See you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.